Yeah, I spent the last couple of months. I've spent really trying to map out the polycrisis. This is a very nerdy disposition, obviously, taking all the things that are not going well in the world and trying to see how it's all connected. But it seems to me that since my motivation for all of the work that I'm in is my deep grievance and constant state of heartbreak with the state of the world, and no more so manifested than in that our children are suffering and taking their own lives, and that nature around us is declining so dramatically as it is. We've lost 73% is the approximate number since 1975 of all individual species. It's declined. They've declined, all of them, by approximately 73% of individuals in each of the species. And we cannot live without nature, and we are nature. And so when we're killing nature, we're killing ourselves. And when we're killing ourselves, it takes something away from nature. So that disconnect is my primary motivation in all of it. So I try to really look at, well, what do we know about our kids' suffering? Well, we know that a huge majority of kids name the climate crisis and unsafe futures as the primary stance of why they feel so anxious about the world. And people ask me, well, isn't that just in wealthy countries? But the report that came out was published in Nature a year and a half ago now, was from 10,000 kids from 10 different countries in the world, including Brazil and the Philippines and Nigeria and UK and Australia and other places like that. So very diverse. And the number one concern that kids have is climate change and the consequences of how that's creating an unsafe future. And we know that climate change, of course, has direct implications for the collapse of our ecosystems, right? We have floodings, we have fires, we have droughts, we have all these situations that are really challenging at a local scale and contributing to climate change at a global scale. And climate change is accelerating all these processes, and that contributes to the unsafe future. That means that we have resource scarcity. It means that it increases, migration rates because of hunger and poverty. It means that it increases trauma and post-traumatic stress. That all feeds back into the declining mental health and well-being of our population on this planet. And that, of course, destabilizes our societies. What are we going to do with all these people who are migrating because water is rising and they can't live in the places where they used to live, or they can't grow their crops any longer, or they don't have access to clean drinking water, and so on? So migration rates will really destabilize our societies, which increases polarization and increases in-grouping and increases, our investment in creating more weapons and increases armed conflict and so on. And that's basically where we see the destabilization of the geopolitical situation. And all of this increases our dissociation and numbness and detachment and all of that, because it's so overwhelming, we don't know how to deal with it. But that in return increases the declining mental health and well-being of our kids and of our population, because when we just watch our reels for 5 hours straight instead of relating to what's actually going on in the world, or we succumb to a dark age fantasy of what's reality. And I think we're seeing that everywhere right now with incredible traction for so many different conspiracy theories or ways of understanding. Oh, just do it this way, then everything will be good. Or I heard recently somebody told me that Taylor Swift is a witch, and just really firmly believed in that. I'm like, we're in a weird place in the world where that's the way we're communicating with ourselves, amongst each other, and with other people, and so on. So just as exemplars. And that all takes away from the mental health and well-being of our population on this planet. So the interconnectedness of all of it is probably one of the places where we tend to overlook or not see what's right in front of us, because we have very low systems literacy, generally speaking. In most education settings, people are not trained to see systems. and or understand interconnectedness and interdependencies. That's one of the reasons why we've created the Compassionate Systems Framework in the first place, so that there is a way for young people to learn to begin to reflect on interdependencies, interconnectedness, and complexity, and understand how all of this is connected. So that means that if we are truly to deal with the declining mental health and well-being of our kids, then we have to also deal with all these other factors, because that's actually what's producing those outcomes of lack of health and feeling safe in the world. And right now, how we're dealing with it, we're taking them as individuals and we're telling them that they have a diagnosis, and then we give them a pill and say, now it's because of you have some diagnosis, or you have too much sensitivity, or it's trauma, or it's whatever. And of course, all of that might be true as well. But that to me are symptoms. These are symptoms of the way in which we've structured the world. The increase in diagnosis of adult females diagnosed with ADHD over the last year in Denmark alone has increased with 300%. And for me, talking about neurodiversity is a symptom of how we've structured ourselves, right? Because diversity is nature's way of growing and unfolding. Variation is how evolution works. So thinking that there's something wrong when your brain doesn't function as the very, very narrow way in which we've identified that this is normally functioning, that's a normally functioning brain and it has to work in this way or that way, is, to me, it's not particularly likely that that's the intent. On the contrary, I think neurodiversity is necessary for us to continue to grow and develop as a species. So it's not about kind of inclusion as a kind of as an outer stance of, oh, we want all this in. It's about understanding from within that the ways in which we function and operate when we're healthy human beings are so much more broad and diverse and creative and so on and so forth than what we've allowed for in our very narrow focus on what it takes to be a productive citizens in a productive society today. And so all of this is completely interconnected with the state of the world and how we've produced all the outcomes that is causing our mental health and well-being to decline to the degree that it is right now.